Through and learn how to do our half portrait, half writing, or half word project. So first thing you're going to want to do is have your portrait. It could be a self-portrait, picture of your friend, family member, pet, whatever it may be. Have that ready and on your desktop. And I have mine here, just a picture of myself. And you're going to open that in Photoshop. You can either drag it down into Photoshop. You can open up Photoshop. I'll get rid of this quick. You can go to File, Open, find where it is. Hopefully it's on your desktop. And then you can go ahead and open that picture once I find it. Oh, right there, duh. Once you have this open, the first thing you can do is go ahead and crop it. So you can crop it to about the size you're going to want it. So predominantly have it be mostly you or whoever it may be. Once you move that around, hit enter or return, and that will crop itself and go back to the move tool, and that's the picture that you will have. Now you want to be sure to resize it and make sure it's 300 resolution. So up to image size. Now if this is taken on your cell phone, it's probably going to be 72 resolution. If it's taken on a DSLR, it's 300. So go ahead and change that, make sure it is 300. And what you can do is make sure the size of the picture is around an 8.5 by 11. So I'm just going to go to height, change that to 11. The width will change automatically, and go ahead and hit OK. Now my picture barely changed, but if you need to zoom in or zoom out, remember Command plus will zoom in, Command minus will zoom back out. Next step here is you're going to unlock the layer so we can actually work with it. And that'll be the little lock that is next to the layer. So go ahead and double click. I'm just going to rename this the background. Click OK. And now that lock disappears, so it is now unlocked and we can mess around with this here. Next up is we're going to erase our background. One way you can erase it is go to the fourth tool down, and this is the quick selection tool. If you select this and you have a background that is a very different color than your foreground, then it will be easy to erase. You click and start dragging, and it'll select like colors that differ from your foreground. If you select them and you hit delete or backspace, it'll delete that and you'll have a transparent background. You can continue to click and move this around and do the same thing. Delete and get rid of that. You can do this as far as you can until it kind of hovers over something maybe you do not want to erase. Good so far. Even though I erased part of my ear, that's all right. You might get to a spot or a section. So right there, this got into my head. I don't want that. To deselect the selection that you have, you can hit Command D, and that'll deselect that. So I might get to some parts where you can't just go ahead and drag because the background, say foreground by my hair, are pretty dark colors, so I might not be able to use that anymore. What you can do is you can go down to the normal eraser, which looks like an old pink eraser, and you can go in here and start deleting in the background. Right now, my opacity is 18%, so if I delete something, it's just going to delete 18% of the pixels. I'm going to hit Command Z and undo that. Bump this up to 100, so you delete 100% of the pixels. And right now, I have a soft edge that you can see on there. Command Z. I'm going to start out and make this a hard edge. So now I have a hard edge selected. 100% of the pixels are going to be erased. Now I'm going to go ahead and zoom in so I can see better. So Command plus. Hold down spacebar. That will move your file around. And now you can go through and begin to delete some parts here. So you go through this quickly. If you get to little parts where you can't get in there, to make your tool smaller, it's the left bracket. So that'll make that pretty tiny. So if you really want to get in there detailed, you can make that a lot smaller. To make it bigger, right bracket. And then you're going to move through here carefully, probably going a little slower than I will be going. Carefully delete around your foreground. bits there, looks pretty good, looks good enough. I'm going to zoom out, Command minus. And this is part you can make the tool a lot larger and get rid of these sections a lot easier. So I take a couple little swipes around the background just to make sure we got rid of everything we didn't want and we didn't leave any little stragglers behind. So when you have pretty much your background cut out, I'm going to soften up the edges, zoom in, go around the bottom. I'm going to turn this to a soft edge. And I'm say going to go to about 20-25%, make this a little bit smaller. If I hover over, it's going to delete some of the pixels. And what I like about this is that you don't have that really harsh edge on there. It softens it up just a little bit. So again, as I'm softening up the edges and moving my file, I'm holding spacebar. It'll grab the file and move it around. So you can play around with this with the different transparencies or opacity. Just go through and slightly soften some of these up. Okay, I'm going to zoom out. So now it's not as harsh. We softened up a little bit of those edges. So once you go ahead and delete all the background that you would like to get rid of, we're going to duplicate our layer to make a copy of it. So right now we have the background. I'm going to just right click and go to duplicate layer. Then you can name it something. This is what I'm going to have be transparent. So I'll put transparency. Click OK. And then you have this on here. So now I'm going to delete half of my head where I'm going to want my words or phrases to be. So I'm going to go back and make this a hard edge. Not flow, just kidding. Opacity will be at 100%. And then you're going to delete. Now you're going to delete the transparency part. If I go through and delete something, you can't actually tell that I'm deleting because my background is there. If you get rid of the background and hit the little eyeball where you can't see it, then it will start to disappear and you can see what you're actually erasing. So it's up to you about how you want to erase. Maybe I'll get rid of just different sections. Maybe I want to do that. I'm going to make the tool bigger, right bracket, and go to town and get rid of all this. So there's that. Now half my face is gone. That's with the background, and that's half my face. You can go to your background, and actually you're going to make that the transparent one and name those backwards. You can go to your opacity and put this at like 10%, so you can very slightly see the outline of the background. I'm going to click back on here and just soften my edges, just so it isn't so much of that harsh transition. So go ahead and just soften those ever so slightly. And then that is basically going to be it. So when it gets printed out, the background is going to be white. You'll see just 10% of the other side of your face or whatever project you're going to work on. And that's the part where you can draw on. So final steps, file, save as, name it whatever you want to. So say half portrait, save it to my desktop. Make sure it is a JPEG, so a picture format. Click save. Maximize the quality, click OK. I'm going to hide this and then see where this is. There's the half portrait, so there's my original. That's me hanging out. Here's what I got from this. So you can barely see the other half of me, so we know exactly where to draw to fill this out. Once we have that ready, you can turn it in on eBackpack. I will print it out for you, and we will draw or write on that.